Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start today with a number. Just a number. 24. That's it. 24 hours in a day. 86,400 seconds. 1,440 minutes. That's what you were given this morning when you woke up. That's what you were given yesterday. That's what you'll be given tomorrow, if tomorrow comes. And right now, as I stand here and as you sit there, those seconds are leaving, one by one, quietly, without announcement, without apology, without the slightest interest in whether you were ready for them to go. And here is the question that I need you to sit with before we go any further today. Here is the question that I believe is one of the most important questions a human being can honestly ask themselves. Where did yesterday go? Not where did it go in the sense of what appointments you had, but where did it really go? What did you build with it? What did you learn from it? What did you move forward? What seed did you plant that will grow into something real? Or did it just pass? Did it just happen to you the way weather happens, the way traffic happens, the way other people's choices happen? Did you just survive it and call that living? But pause, I need to tell you something today that might be uncomfortable to hear. Something that the people who love you might be too gentle to say. Something that the world around you is too distracted to notice. The reason most people are broke, not just financially broke, but broke in their spirit, broke in their potential, broke in their sense of self-worth and possibility. The reason most people are broke is not because the world is unfair, though sometimes it is. It's not because they weren't born with the right connections, though connections matter. It's not because they weren't smart enough or talented enough or lucky enough or lucky enough. The reason most people are broke is because they are spending the one currency that matters most, time, on things that will never make them rich. Not just financially, rich in every sense of the word, rich in knowledge, rich in skill, rich in character, rich in relationships, rich in the deep unshakable feeling that your life is going somewhere that you chose. 24 hours. Everybody gets them. The billionaire and the person sleeping on the street. The person changing the world and the person who has given up on changing anything. The same sky, the same rotation of the earth, the same number of hours in the day. What separates the outcomes is what happens inside those hours. And today, we are going to talk about that. We are going to go deep today. We are going to go to places that motivational speeches don't usually go, because I'm not interested in making you feel good for an hour and sending you home unchanged. I am interested in breaking something open in you today. Something that's been waiting. Something that you've been protecting with excuses and comfort and fear. Because being honest about it would mean you'd have to do something about it. And doing something about it is the scariest thing in the world. But so is staying broke. So is being 55 years old and still in the same place you were at 30. So is looking at your children and knowing that the version of their parent they deserve, the version with options, with confidence, with the life they chose, never quite showed up because their parent was too afraid to use the 24 hours they were given. That is scarier than anything I'm going to say today. So let's go to what I want to tell you about a morning I remember vividly. I was sitting in a parking lot. I don't tell this story often because it's the kind of story that feels almost too specific, too small to matter. But small stories are where the truth lives. I was sitting in a parking lot at about 7:15 in the morning outside a building where I had a meeting I'd been trying to get for months. A meeting that I thought was going to change everything for me. A meeting that I had told myself was the door through which my real life would begin. And I sat in that parking lot and I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, and for the first time in a long time, I saw myself clearly. Not the story I told people, not the version I performed on social media. Me, the real me. And what I saw was someone who had been brilliant at explaining why things hadn't worked out yet. Someone who had spent the last 3 years becoming an expert at identifying the obstacles between himself and the life he wanted, without ever becoming equally expert at dismantling them. Someone who had made not yet into a comfortable home, and the meeting happened, and it went well, actually. But something more important happened in that parking lot. I made a decision, not a loud, dramatic, movie-style decision, a quiet one. The kind you make when you're so tired of your own excuses that the comfort they used to provide just doesn't work anymore. I decided that I was done treating my 24 hours like they were endless. Because they're not. None of us knows how many we have left. And the ones we've already used up are gone. Forever. Gone. And I had used a lot of mine waiting. I want you to think about your waiting. Because we all do it. We wait in different ways for different things with different stories. But the waiting is the same underneath. The waiting is fear with a more presentable face. The waiting is the gap between who you are and who you know you could be, and the story you've built to make that gap feel acceptable rather than urgent. Some of you are waiting until you have more money to start the thing you want to start. Some of you are waiting until you have more time, which is ironic because time is the one thing that never comes later in greater supply. You will never have more time than you do right now. Later, there will be more obligations, more complications, more reasons that this isn't the moment. The moment is always now, and we are always explaining why now isn't quite right. Some of you are waiting until you feel more confident. And I want to address that one directly because it's so common and so devastating in what it costs people. Confidence is not a prerequisite to action. Confidence is a result of action. It is built brick by brick through the accumulation of attempts, successful and unsuccessful, that prove to you through lived experience rather than through self-talk that you are capable of doing hard things. You will not feel confident and then start. And then start. You will start badly, imperfectly, with your voice shaking and your plan half-formed. And through the starting, you will find, slowly and sometimes painfully, the confidence that starting alone could give you. I want to talk about, because the title of today's speech puts it right there. Use your 24 hours or stay broke. And I think we need to actually talk about money, honestly, without shame, without the spiritual bypass of money isn't everything. Because yes, money isn't everything, but it is freedom. Freedom matters. The freedom to choose where you live, how you spend your time, what opportunities you can give your children, whether a medical emergency destroys your family financially, whether you can leave a situation that is bad for you, or whether you have to stay because you can't afford to leave. That's not abstract. That's real life. And people who tell you money doesn't matter have usually never had to choose between keeping the lights on and buying groceries. Let's talk about financial wealth. Financial and the connection between how you use your 24 hours and whether you build it or whether you don't. Here's something that took me longer to understand than it should have. Poor people, and I mean people who are financially poor, which is not a moral judgment and not a reflection of intelligence or worth. Poor people and wealthy people do not primarily differ in their intelligence or their work ethic. I have known extraordinary, hardworking, brilliant people who struggle financially their entire lives. And I've known people of average intelligence and moderate work ethic build significant wealth. The primary difference, in most cases, is not how hard they work. It's what they work on. It's what they spend their hours building toward. That poor people generally trade their time for money. Wealthy people generally build things with their time that generate money whether or not they're actively working. Poor people work in the system. Wealthy people understand the system well enough to make it work for them. And this is not a judgment. Most of us are never taught the difference. We are taught to get good grades, get a good job, work hard, and everything will work out. We are not taught to think like owners, taught to think like owners. We are not taught to think about assets and leverage and the compounding of skills. We are not taught that the goal is to spend your hours building something that will keep working when you're not. Now, I'm not standing here promising you that if you just change your mindset, millions of dollars will appear. That's not what I believe, and it's not what I'm saying. Systemic inequity is real. Access to capital is not equal. The starting line is not the same for everyone, and pretending otherwise is dishonest and disrespectful to people who face real structural barriers. But within the constraints of your specific life, whatever those constraints are, there is almost always more you can do with your 24 hours than you are currently doing. There is almost always a skill you could be building, a knowledge gap you could be closing, a connection you could be making, something you could be creating, some way in which you could be investing your hours in your future rather than just surviving your present. And I want to talk about what most people are actually doing with their hours. Not to shame anyone, but to hold up a mirror. Because I think most of us, if we were honest, would be confronted by the gap between how we think we're spending our time and how we're actually spending it. Studies consistently show that the average person in the modern world spends somewhere between 4 and 7 hours every day on screens, not working screens, entertainment and social media screens, 4 to 7 hours every day. Now, and I want to be very careful here because I don't believe in vilifying rest and I don't believe in vilifying entertainment. If you are spending 5 hours a day watching other people's lives while your own life remains unchanged, you are making a transaction. You are making a transaction. You are trading 5 hours of your finite 24 for a feeling of escape, of entertainment, of connection, sort of, through a screen. And that transaction might feel worthwhile in the moment. But let me show you what that transaction actually costs. 5 hours a day is 35 hours a week. It is 1,820 hours a year. In 1,820 hours, you could become conversational in a new language. You could learn to code well enough to build a marketable product. You could read over 100 books, real, substantive, life-changing books in your specific area of interest or desired expertise. You could build a side business from zero to generating real income. You could develop a skill to professional level. You could change your body completely. Completely. You could build a network that opens doors you currently don't even know exist. I'm not saying do all of those things. I'm saying choose one. Choose one thing that would genuinely change your circumstances and then look at where those 5 hours are currently going and ask yourself, is the screen earning my future or am I paying for someone else's with the hours I will never get back? This is not comfortable to hear. I know that. And I'm not standing here pretending that I'm perfect in how I use my time. I'm standing here as someone who has wasted enormous amounts of time and can see with painful clarity what that waste cost me. Years. Actual years of my life where I was moving, doing things, keeping busy, but not building, not investing, not becoming. Just filling the hours with the path of least resistance and calling it living. I want to tell you about a man named Marcus. Marcus grew up in a household that didn't have much. His father worked 2 jobs. His mother worked 1. They were not poor in spirit. His parents were extraordinary human beings who loved their children fiercely and worked themselves to the bone to provide for them. But they were financially trapped in the way that a lot of families are trapped, where the money that comes in goes immediately to the obligations that have piled up. And there's never enough left over to build anything, to invest anything, to create the cushion that would allow you to take a risk. Marcus watched his father work himself to exhaustion for 30 years. He watched a brilliant, capable man give his best hours to jobs that barely paid him what he was worth, because he had a family to feed and couldn't afford the risk of stopping to build something better. And Marcus made a decision. Quietly, as a teenager, watching his father fall asleep in a chair at 9 o'clock because he was so tired, he decided he was going to figure out how the wealthy people did it. Not to disrespect his father, out of love for his father. Out of a refusal to repeat a pattern that he could see clearly was costing his family something irreplaceable. So Marcus started reading. And I mean, really reading. Not self-help books that told him to believe in himself. He read books on economics, on business, on how money actually works, on investing, on how industries function, on how people who had built things had built them. He'd read before school. He'd read after school. He'd read after school. He'd read on weekends. Not because he was naturally disciplined, he'll tell you he's not. But because he had a vision of something, a clear image of a different kind of life. And that vision made the reading feel like progress rather than punishment. He graduated, got a regular job, worked hard at it. But he never treated the job as the destination. He treated it as the funding mechanism for the real work, which was happening in the hours before and after the job. He was building a skill. He was building knowledge. He was building a small side project that most people around him didn't take seriously because it was and slow and not producing any visible results yet. 2 years. Then 3, then 3, then 4. The side project started generating a little money, then more money. Then one day, and this is the moment that doesn't make it onto the highlight reel, the moment that doesn't get the music swell in the movie version. One day Marcus sat at his kitchen table and looked at a spreadsheet and realized that what he had built in the margins of his life, in the hours before sunrise and after everyone else went to sleep, was now generating more income than his job. And the job became optional. And with the job optional, freedom became possible. Marcus is not famous. He's not a billionaire. He's not on the cover of a magazine. He is a man who used his 24 hours differently than his environment suggested he should, consistently over years with patience and faith in a process whose results were invisible for a very long time. And today he has options. He has choices. He has the ability to say yes to things and no to things not based on whether he can afford to, but based on whether he wants to. That is wealth. That is what using your 24 hours builds, if you use them with intention and consistency and courage. I want to talk about the broke mindset. Not the broke bank account, the broke mindset. Because you can have money and still have a broke mindset. And you can be financially poor and have a rich mindset. The mindset is more important than the current bank balance. Because the mindset is what determines what the bank balance will be in 5 years. The broke mindset says, I don't have time. The rich mindset says, I don't have time for that, but I have time for this. The broke mindset says, I'll start when I have more resources. The rich mindset says, I'll build resources by starting with what I have. The broke mindset says, that worked for them, but my situation is different. The rich mindset says, what part of what worked for them can I adapt to my situation? The broke mindset looks at successful people with suspicion or envy. The rich mindset looks at successful people with curiosity, not to copy them, but to understand them. To extract the principles from their story that are transferable to a different context. And here's the thing about mindset that people sometimes resist. Mindset is not a fixed thing. It is not something you were born with or without. It is a pattern of thinking. And patterns of thinking are habits. And habits can be changed. Not easily, not quickly, not without discomfort. But they can be changed. The brain is plastic. It rewires based on what you repeatedly do and think. Which means that if you consistently practice thinking in patterns that serve your growth, looking for opportunity rather than obstacles, interpreting setbacks as data rather than verdicts, asking, how can I, rather than I can't because, eventually with enough repetition, those become your natural responses, your default, your automatic thought patterns. But it starts with a decision. And decisions happen in the 24 hours that you have. Let me talk about something that I think is one of the most underrated investments a person can make in their future. It's not investing in the stock market, though that matters. It's not even investing in a business, though that can change your life. The most important investment you can make in your financial future is investing in your own skills and knowledge. Your skills are the one asset that cannot be taken from you. Your bank account can be emptied. Your business can fail. Your job can be eliminated. Your investments can tank. But what you can do, the expertise you have built through years of deliberate practice and learning, that stays with you. That walks through the door with you into every room. That is the foundation on which everything else gets built. And skill building happens in the 24 hours you have. It happens in the hour before work, in the 30 minutes on your lunch break, in the commute that could be a podcast instead of music, in the weekend morning instead of a late start. Skill building happens quietly, invisibly, without immediate reward. And it compounds. Every hour you invest in building a skill makes the next hour of investment more productive because you are building on a foundation rather than starting from zero. I want to talk about some specific things, not vaguely, specifically, because I think vague motivational speeches do people a disservice. They leave you feeling inspired, but not knowing what to actually do. So let me be specific. If you are financially struggling right now, the most powerful thing you can do with your 24 hours, starting today, is to identify one skill that is in high demand in the world right now, that you are interested enough in to spend time learning and to begin learning it, not tomorrow. Today, after the speech today, 1 hour of deliberate, focused learning in that skill, and then the same tomorrow, and the day after, not because 1 hour will change everything, but because beginning changes you. Because the first hour of consistent investment in yourself sends a signal to your nervous system, to your identity, that you are the kind of person who invests in yourself. And over time, that identity shapes everything else. Skills are in high demand. I'm not going to give you a list that will be outdated in 2 years, but I'll give you a framework. Any skill that helps businesses make money or save money is valuable. Any skill that is technical enough to require effort to learn but learnable without a 4-year degree is valuable. Any skill at the intersection of creativity and technology is valuable. Any skill in communication, writing, speaking, storytelling, persuasion is wildly underrated in its earning potential and wildly underdeveloped in most people, but more than the specific skill is the habit of learning. The habit of deliberately investing in your own capability. The habit of treating your hours as if they are building something, because they are always building something. The only question is whether they're building your future or someone else's. Let me talk about mornings again. I know I touched on it earlier, but I want to go deeper because I genuinely believe that what you do in the first hour of your day is one of the highest leverage decisions you make. Not because there's magic in the morning, but because the morning for most people is the one part of the day where the demands of the world haven't yet arrived. The emails haven't started. The phone hasn't started ringing. The obligations haven't landed yet. The morning is the part of the day that is most purely yours if you choose to claim it. And yet most people give it away immediately. The alarm goes off and the first thing that happens is the phone comes off the nightstand. And suddenly you're swimming in other people's content, other people's opinions, the news, social media, all of it, before you've had a single thought of your own. And I want to ask you, what does that do to a human being? What does it do to start every day by immediately orienting yourself to the external world before you've spent even 5 minutes in your internal one? It makes you reactive. It makes you feel immediately behind, immediately inadequate, immediately anxious, immediately concerned with things that are mostly outside your control. It starts your nervous system in a state of low-grade stress that then colors everything for the rest of the day, And you never even notice it happening. What if you claim the first hour? What if the first hour of your day belonged to your future, to your growth, to the version of yourself you're trying to become? What if you spent it on the skill you're building? The book that's changing how you think, the plan you're developing, the body you're improving, the mind you're quieting and strengthening. What if the first hour of every day was an investment rather than a donation to things that don't serve you? In a year, that's 365 hours. That's more than 9 40-hour work weeks of deliberate investment in yourself. Imagine what changes in you, what you learn, what you build, who you become after 9 full work weeks of focused investment in your own growth. Per year, every year, compounding. That is what's available to you. Right there, in the morning that you're currently giving away. I want to address something that comes up whenever I talk about this, and it's a fair objection. Not everyone has clean, free mornings. Some people have babies. Some people have demanding situations that claim their mornings before they even begin. Some people work night shifts and their mornings are their recovery time, which they genuinely need. I hear that. I want to acknowledge it.